Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey, let me go ahead and I need to hit this right quick.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Because I had a last minute phone call and I came back and I rushed to get in here and forgot to go live. So I've been actually waxing poetic for the last 10 minutes. Oh, dummies, stupid. Why am I so stupid? Oh my gosh. Anyway, all right. So today we're going to talk about the mainstream myths. Are they right? Spoilers. Most of them are not. Okay, most of them. Anyway, so before that, we're going to talk about this awesome little number right here. This is called Soltac. All right. Badgers, we don't need a stinking badgers. We do need ferrets, though. We definitely need ferrets. Okay, anyway. So this is that came with a real cool merch package. Mine came late. I guess I got overlooked, but because of that, the Mad Ruth, the creator, he actually sent me the floppies as well as the graphic novel. We had a conversation after I read the graphic novel, and to be honest, he thinks he knows what I'm going to say, but I actually have to change something. I actually have to say I was wrong about something. So, okay, all right, mark it down. Tell him Cooper is occasionally wrong. I'll admit it. All right. Anyway, so with this right here, you've got a kind of a mystery story. A ship goes missing. A space station gets destroyed, and this one lady, she kind of gets framed for the whole thing. This lovely, her name is Maisha Otso. She's the heir to the Yoshiko Corporation fortune. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this man knows his audience. Anyway, so you start out with this strange event, and then you catch up with a guy named Dexter Barrow, also nicknamed the Death Dealer. He happens to be a badass of the First Water. It's got the eye patch, and this artist really does action really well. You can tell this guy. He has some knowledge of martial arts. At least he knows how people fight. Because you can feel a lot of impact in everything he does. Like, this guy's just kicking the door right here. You can that's a lot of impact there. With Dexter Barrow, Barrow happens to be a legend. He's kind of a legendary badass. They call the Death Dealer. But he is kind of sent by a shady, kind of like a spook, to find this lovely little lady, possessor of the cute butt. And he first thing he does is he goes and gets his favorite pilot, he's currently estranged from. He happens to be a species of orangutan named Giles. Giles is great. Giles has a really dry sense of humor. I enjoyed Giles. Hold on a second. There you go. Well, there you go. Your military knowledge and his art. That's obviously paid off. But he sends Barrow after it, and there's a few other people that kind of show up. Of course, you got the lovely lady. You know, she's kind of she's considered a Ronin, which is a masterless samurai. Evidently, she's estranged from her father, kind of making her own way. She's a real badass character. But her and Barrow come to an agreement. She doesn't cuck him out, and he doesn't like lay down for her like most modern comics would have him do. But the ones that stole my heart are these guys right here, the ferrets right there. You know, love those guys. Oh, there you go, right there in the middle. They happen to be psychic ferrets, the 5 ferrets that are also cyborgs. So, cyborg psychic ferrets. You heard it here. Anyway, but they are great little can-do guys. You know, they always have positive attitude, and scary is great. Scary, it's really, really great how they operate. Very, 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 very enjoyable to read. Yeah, AAT. There you go. But along the way, you got some really cool panels like these, right, like that one right there. It's very beautiful. And one like that right there, also very beautiful for different reasons. And the story does kind of come full circle. It kind of goes back to some like foreshadowing and some stuff like that. I won't show you towards the end because the end's really, that would showing stuff from the end would definitely spoil the thing. So I'm not going to do that. Now, for the graphic novel, I have a different rating than I have for the floppies. Now, I had this discussion with Mad Ruth after I read it. Mad, he's a good friend of mine. And hold on one second. What types of bunny units would you deploy against psychic ferrets in critter warfare? That's too involved of a question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Anyway, but yeah, me and Craig go back, and Craig is the kind of guy, he wants feedback. He doesn't go on attack mode anytime somebody criticizes him. If it's a decent feedback, if it's legitimate feedback, Craig wants it. And we had a discussion, and I told him that I thought that the pacing was a little too dense. And I thought it was a little too compressed, and I thought that it's a little overwhelming. But I loved it. I mean, I love the world. I love the dynamics. I love the politics. I love the secondary characters. Craig can write a secondary character. Not many people can these days. But it's a very enjoyable world. But I thought that the graphic novel was a little dense, and I thought it was the pacing seemed a little bit cramped for some reason. And so there you go. That's my man. Greatest lessons to learn from my biggest mistakes, right? But anyway, for that reason, for the graphic novel, I'm going to give you this. Now, that being said, and that's a very good score. That's 4 carats out of 6. That's still a bunny recommend, a high bunny recommend. Okay, it's not a marginal bunny recommend; it's a high recommend. But these puppies right here. Now, this is the floppies. Now, once I read these, I kind of understood that the way Craig writes is he writes floppies. He writes with floppies in mind. And these were like perfectly paced for floppies. And the amount a byte of story was just absolutely perfect. And you know, these covers are awesome. I love these covers. They're really cool. And this has got to be one of my favorites right here. But so the reason why is pacing is a very interesting thing. Pacing really has a rhythm. It's a rhythm of when you read something, of the way things fall into, you know, how many pages this mini arc takes. And what I discovered was that Craig is an awesome floppy writer, but he needs a little work on his graphic novel writing. And that's kind of backwards from what I usually see. I usually see people that write graphic novel length, but then they just chop it into 4. And what you get is 4 subpar floppies that aren't quite paced right, and 1 decent graphic novel. But he went the opposite way. He's got a decent graphic novel, and he's got 3 perfectly paced floppies. And his 4th book is going to be a floppy. And so I would highly suggest getting it. It's in the campaign below. That being said, for the Soltac floppies, because I really think that the floppies are a better experience than the graphic novel was, and so that's really kind of strange. I didn't expect that, because you know, when we had this discussion, I told him it's an awesome book. I really enjoyed it. I said, but I thought if you had one weakness or one thing that you might need to work on is you might need to work on your pacing. But now I understand that his pacing is perfect for floppies. Now, but he kind of compressed his perfect pacing into a different format graphic novel. And so he probably needs, if he's going to like take these into a different format, he might need to make a longer graphic novel to have it paced perfectly, you know. But and now that he has some more resources, hopefully they'll be done. Hold on a second. Got some inside information here. Yes, and layout is different. The page and laser lines up, removing the cover for number 3 lays out the end of the book properly. Yeah, exactly. I could honestly tell, because it went from this as a graphic novel, but this as floppies. It was a very high recommend floppy wise. Now once he does this next graphic novel, once the next arc is complete and he decides to collect it in the graphic novel, he's got more editing resources with Arrow Comics than he had before. And so this is very minor gripe that I had with the graphic novel. Otherwise it's awesome world building, awesome characters, great. He's even got his own slang language, you know, on his own technical terms, you know, and it's a very deep and complicated world, and I'm very looking forward to revisiting as soon as possible. All right, so better floppy than flop. Right. He always makes it sexual. Jeez Louise. Welcome in, Immortal Rising. Welcome in. Listening, grilling. All right, dude. All right. I hope I gave you some something to listen to. All right. So that being taken care of, once again, I highly recommend. The link is in the chat. Check it out. It's on Fun My Comic. Great website. Along with it is some Arrow bundles, and you can get a sample of what Arrow's got available. And Arrow is definitely one of the best comic book outfits that you haven't heard recently. They've been around since the 80s, but what they're doing now is really, really unique. It's worth a look. But you can get Arrow bundles with any of the Arrow books. They make them available. I think for $40 you can get about 8 books or something like that, which is incredible value. Anyway, anytime, Craig, man. You've propped me up quite a bit, man. I appreciate it. Anyway, so let's talk about some mainstream myths. Now the mainstream has its old entire mythology that's meant to keep them here and keep indie down here. Okay, in the public perception. All right. Now, so there's a few myths that they like to promulgate to keep everybody in the proper place. All right. One of the myths, the first myth I'd like to talk about is they like to say that there's a quality gap. That being in the mainstream means that you get better quality than you do from indie. Okay, well, I keep this handy because it's a good indicator. What I sold you, Soltac, just a little while ago, was absolutely incredible and top notch. But then you get some things like this. Okay. I mean, I got like four incredible covers that are better than anything I've gotten in mainstream in maybe a decade or more. This is old, like, oh, sorry. This is just old school, man. Look at this right here. Is that incredible? But it comes in this box right here. There you go. And this package right here. It took me a while to get it. Noted. It took me a while to get it. But once I got it, my jaw dropped. And it's very much worth it to me. But when they say quality, they also mean the quality of the writing and the quality of the art, which is definitely a lie. Got a couple things here. I heard that if I don't like Captain Marvel, it's because I hate gay women of color. Is this a mainstream myth? Yes, it is a mainstream myth. Hold on a second. All right. Comics are booming. That's a mainstream myth. Anyway. But so they talk about the quality level. So you just saw the fit and finish on that is incredible. But the interior is even more incredible. Let me get this book here. Now, I reviewed this one last week, I believe. But this right here, this is somebody that doesn't have Ethan Van Sciver's, incredible resources. His cavalcade of ex-mainstream pros that he can call upon, not to mention finances. But this guy right here, this is Bonik Bra. He is out of Atlanta, an ex-veteran, I think, from out of Atlanta. But he went a different route. He went with a kind of a painted style, right? And what he's got is a very unique comic right here. That is just really, really neat. And I was surprised at the subtlety of that book because I was thinking that I knew where the book was going. I was thinking that I knew where what the villain was doing, because this girl was like kicking this villain around, and I was immediately going like, "Oh crap," like, "Oh well, here we go, girl boss, right?" But then it turns out that the villain was actually playing possum. He was actually letting them win, and because he wanted to follow them back to their headquarters. And it's just like, well, damn, okay, that guy's a lot scarier than I thought, and so it's like, well, crap, this guy's a lot more terrifying than I gave him credit. But that kind of subtlety, you just, I've gotten mainstream comics. I've kind of attempted to go back to mainstream comics for a while now. Now that's not to say that once upon a time that mainstream comics didn't have a point. That's not because once upon a time, indie comics were kind of scrappy. They were kind of, on the edge. They were like they're trying to like make their way in the ecosphere, so they would have like really like questionable stuff, and when you got them, you were kind of like the topics were usually more real life, more edgy. But once upon a time, the mainstream was putting out stuff like this. Mutant Massacre. Okay. Now, back when that first hit, they had a point. Okay. That mainstream was legit. That mainstream was another quality level than what indie was capable of putting out. But then technology advanced, and now printing is available. High quality printing is available for the man on the street for a pretty decent price, and so that level that used to be there is gone now because of the fall off of writing ability. Because meritocracy has no longer been the hiring the hiring reason for hiring someone. Now has to do more with the identity than it does with their ability. Now that that's the case, the writing's not superior either. So what you got, you don't have any Innocentes, Wheezy, Samuelson, Chris Claremont, you don't have Buziak and people like that. Now you've got people like Kelly Sue DeConnick, read Bitch Planet sometime. That's not a pro level writer. She's not in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, so that is a misnomer. Okay, so another mainstream myth that we get kind of shoved at us all the time is that it's a privilege to be mainstream. It's a privilege. Now, because it's a privilege that only the elites get. Okay, let me make that qualifier. Okay, so that means if you're in the mainstream, if you got morbid curiosity, Frost. Okay, if you got morbid curiosity, I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying if you want, I'm just saying. All right, right. Okay, so the idea is if the people hit the mainstream, then that means that they have some kind of superiority that we don't have. I meant to download these, but I forgot because that's how I roll. But anyway, so this right here, this is YA for YA, right? All these characteristics here. This is who's allowed to. This is who's allowed to submit anything to this person. Okay. I said good day to you, sir. Right. Wookie Fever, what's up, dude? Anyway. But so this right here, okay, this is 4 pages of this stuff, okay? Now this is a she's seeking YA and adult and YA contemporary novels. SFFH, I'm not sure what that is. But she's like, she is only open to receiving queries from writers who identify as belonging to a marginalized or underrepresented community. Okay, so if you're white and male, need not apply. And probably white and female. So this is please include any content and trigger warnings in your query. Alrighty. Anyway, so this is one of the biggest agents that does YA. Anyway, queries. Right. Okay. And she is automatically excluding a whole entire point, a whole entire, segment of society. Okay. So please do not send. All right. Gravelizations of your tabletop campaign, books with gratuitous gore, splatter, or slash fiction, books that employ fridging, propaganda, whatever, propaganda. I guess that means cop stories that make cops look good. Military science fiction, literary fiction, adult contemporary, middle grade, or novellas. Okay. Now, what she wants you to found families, pro tags that are too smart, or let's say, I guess this is favorite traits and tropes. Okay. This is what she's looking like. What she enjoys. Okay. Found family, pro tags that are too smart for their own good, stories about embracing your identity, friendship is magic, stories that center BIPOC and queer happiness, enemies to friends, unlikely friendships, non-binary main characters tasting power and choosing chaos, grump and sunshine stabby and cinnamon roll pairings, whatever the hell that is. Film villains corrupting cinnamon rolls and himbos. Cinnamon rolls. Okay. Non-white power couples, non-white love interest, sapphic everything. Enemies to lovers and friends to lovers. Slow burn and second chance romance and heists. Okay, that's her favorite tropes. All right. Now, her hobbies, background, identity deeply inform what she loves, and some examples of how this influences her taste includes work that, this is what she's looking for in a work, burns down the patriarchy or destroys colonizers. All right, contains D&D or other tabletop RPG Easter eggs or inside jokes for games like Hades, Devil May Cry, or Final Fantasy. This is somebody that's already said they didn't like science fiction. So it has the emotional resonance of games like Gree or Old Man's Journey, has the political complexity and ethical realities of anime like Gundam or Full Metal Alchemist also. So I'm not going to read the rest of this, but it's all hypocritical. It's all, countermands itself. And it's just a gobbledygook. This is somebody that honestly does not know what they want. They just know they don't want white men. And so that's YA fiction. If you go by YA fiction on Barnes and Noble, you will think you're at the romance aisle. I mean, it's almost entirely wall to wall. Women names on spines. And YA fiction used to be something that was written as well by men as well as women. And it used to be like a good medium ground because little boys have different desires and different tastes and different needs than little girls do. But now it's all little girl. I mean, it's all teenage girl and all little girl. There's nothing there for teenage boys. Nothing there for boys in general, which is why most of our boys are growing up illiterate because there's very little fiction that has any resonance to them. Thank God for manga. Okay, thank God for manga. Our little boys would have nothing to read because nothing Western is slanted or in any way, shape, or form, including little boys. Now, the new Transformers series that just came out, the comic book, is very promising. I've been told by very many people that it's good. How much more was there? Okay. How much more was there? That's how much more was there. This was what she's currently craving. I might as well read it. She's currently craving kink and polypositive work. She's currently craving sapphic power couples. Think Korra and Asami, The Legend of Korra, or Mishiro or Hikuro in Sailor Moon. The slow, sweet burning of Mitsuri and Obanai, Demon Slayer, but with a happy ending. She's craving the power sibling love of Tenjiro and Nezuko, or Daki or Gutiaro, Demon Slayer. And anything gives her the same roller coaster of emotions as Demon Slayer. So basically, she wants a Demon Slayer knockoff. Okay. Fair enough. Queenmaker, a sapphic political fantasy or science fiction. A book that feels like Poker Face or Knives Out. She wants a book that feels like Knives Out. She thinks that's the height of fiction. Okay. No, you don't really need to. I was just asking because that was a lot. Yeah, I couldn't care less what they want. Well, there's a few in here that are real jewels. Let me just finish up right quick. She wants a white protagonist of any gender identity or orientation that can be compared to Miles Morales into the Spider-Verse, across the Spider-Verse. So not Miles Morales from the comic, but Miles Morales from it across the Spider-Verse. BIPOC vampires. She wants BIPOC vampires. There you go. All the feelings of the moment, and jealous became Angel again, and then Buffy had to run him through with a sword. Okay. Dark academia, but replace academia with esports or tabletop gaming. Contemporary or contemporary SFFH that engages deeply and authentically with gaming, anime, cosplay, streaming, or convention communities with one or multiple fandoms. So, anyway, so if you can find a way to navigate that labyrinth and give her this little narrow sliver of what she's evidently into, then you'll have a very powerful agent. But otherwise, but starting out, if you're a white male, don't even bother. Just don't bother. There you go. But that's not discrimination because of power dynamics, right? But that is one thing that that feeds right into that mainstream myth that to be in the mainstream means you're the best of the best. That's not the case. That's never been the case. As a matter of fact, for every mainstream band that's out there that everybody knows, there's about 12 or 13 that are way better that could kick their butt on any given day. Now, any like, I'm not trying to be like one of the little snobby people that are like, I like my pop culture. I mean, I like my pop bands as well as anybody. I'm a big Hanson fan, so there you go. Anyway, but everybody knows. I mean, Rush for years was not on radios, and bands that were nowhere near that quality, nowhere near that musicianship, nowhere near that complexity, were like being played. You know, you got Foghat #1 on the radio, and nobody knows who Rush is at the same time. You know, but that happened. They eventually became cool, and they eventually became mainstream. But that was later. What's up, Aaron? What's up, dude? Good to see you, man. But yes, I like Hanson. If you haven't heard them lately, check them out. They're even better than you first saw them. I mean, they've grown up. They've grown up well. Anyway, so, but like I'm saying, I mean, I like all kinds of music, but nobody's gonna say that. Okay, the people that are being pushed in the mainstream are in any way, shape, or form the cream of the crop. That's not what's going on anymore. There was once upon a time where people made it because they were just that damn good, and you know, an A&R rep heard them or something, and they discovered them in a bar somewhere, and made them a household name. That's the way things used to be. That's not the way things are now. Now, you're seeing a pattern here. Most of these myths that we get from the mainstream are predicated on the way things used to be about 20, 30 years ago. Now, once upon a time, there was meritocracy. Once upon a time, people who were good did rise to the top. Once upon a time, there was some validity to this. There was some validity to it, okay? Now, another myth that we get is before this current generation, there was no diversity in the mainstream. It was all white people. in the mainstream. Now, this one is odd because this is not a projection of like, this is not a projection about 20, 30 years ago. This is projection all the way back to 40 or 50 years ago. And that's what they're pointing to 40 or 50 years ago. Okay. This is not even the 60s, because in the 60s, there was black people, Asian people were starting to make their way into pop culture, and so there was a beginning of an influx of minorities into the pop culture. It wasn't as complete whitewash. It hadn't been before that, but you could count them on one hand before that. But in the 60s and 70s, there was definitely an influx of minorities into the creative space. And so, what they're pointing back to, they're pointing back to 40s and 50s. And so, they're projecting that there was, and if they were talking, if 40s and 50s were who they were referring to, yes, there was a lack of diversity back then. That's a good point. But that's 40. I mean, that's the 40s or 50s, guys. That is way long ago. That's about 60 or 70 years ago. And so what they're doing is they're taking that situation back then and they're projecting it to today. And they're using that as a straw man. But that is not the case. It's not been the case for decades. Okay, decades. Let me show you on this same book right here. All right. There's a name. Let me find it. But there's a name right here. That name right there. That's Ann Nocenti. Okay. Now this came out originally in the mid 1980s. I don't know the exact date. But Ann Nocenti was a black lady. They call her Annie. That's what her friends call her. Hell of a writer, hell of an editor, and she took a backseat to no one. And that she was in Marvel Comics at that time. My favorite writer from that era was Weezy Simonson, who happens to be a female. And so and Christopher Priest was active back then. And this is the 80s. And so they're trying to say that there was no diversity until their generation. That's bullshit. Now, because the thing about it was the people that did make it into comics at that time, the people that were interested in comics, there just weren't that many minorities that were interested in comics. But the ones that were interested in comics, we got the creme de la creme. But that's minorities to start with. That's less people. But then people that were interested in comics, that's less people. And then, but the best of the best, the ones that were able to make it at Marvel, that was less people. And that's the reason why there was few people of color. But there were plenty of people of color all throughout the Marvel. There was in editorial and in penciling and in coloring, all throughout. There was people of color, But they're trying to say, they're pointing to something that hasn't been true for over 60 years. 60 or 70 years. And they're trying but to justify their current existence. We are the best generation. We are the first. And they keep saying that, this is the first person of color to do this, the first person of color to do that. And then somebody's able to immediately, no, they're not the first. This person's the first. And this person in the 70s is the first. Because they have no scope to their to the history that they quote. They have no scope. They basically pick and choose. Okay, this was true back in the 60s, 50s, and 40s and 50s. So, so I'm going to say this is true today, up till today. And that completely takes out the historical, it's not the case. It's not the case. Anyway, let me go back and catch up all this right here. Anyway, Hollywood's always been liberal, even red. Yep. I think good writers will rise to the top today. There just aren't any. The best they have are at the top. Why would a better writer work for the mainstream? There you go. Imagine being a good writer of real ideas trying to work for Marvel or DC. Yeah, just ask Jonathan Hickman how that worked out for him. And I honestly think he's a good writer. I just don't. I just don't think they knew how to. I don't think they ran him well. I don't think they reined him in well. Anyway, a couple of Jews create the most famous superhero of all time between world wars. Comics have always been white. Exactly. I don't think of myself as a writer, but I have ideas I don't want to put in writing that could turn Marvel around, but they don't get my ideas. No, they don't. Let's see. Chuck Berry and Little Richard say hi. Yeah. There you go. Chuck Berry, Count Basie, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, 1950s diversity entertainment. There are many, many, many more. Many, many more. Yeah. And I read mainstream in the 90s. I wasn't checking what color the writers and artists were. Exactly. Selective amnesia is a lack of research by some in the business. Right. Exactly. So, okay. So that's another myth. And notice the reason for that myth is because they're making a straw man out of historical realities that they're picking and choosing. Okay. Now, so far, I've not been able to establish any mythology that they have. But, if you guys can think of a mainstream myth that they believe that has some kind of basis in reality, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll discuss it. But the last one I wanted to cover, to me, the last mainstream myth is that they will always be the mainstream. That's the last myth. They're on top. They will always be on top. But when the numbers weren't bearing that out, they started hiding the numbers. But the numbers don't bear that out anymore. Okay? There's been independent projects that have just been killing the mainstream over the course of the last 2 years. Now, they don't get talked about. They don't get pointed out because people don't want to point them out. But the other day, Tom McDonald and Adam Calhoun, two white rappers who are on a more conservative side that are completely 100% independent, they put an album out together that topped Billboard. It topped Billboard. Two completely independent guys have no attachment to the mainstream whatsoever. No distribution deal. Nobody has any feelers in what they're doing. And they just went number one. That happened just the other day. I've been talking about my man, Oliver Anthony Music, Chris Lunsford, who went number one on iTunes and went number one on Spotify. And then he went number one on Billboard with a song called Rich Man North of Richmond. That came out of nowhere. Okay. Sound of Freedom, movie made by about 14 million by a bunch of South Americans and a few Americans and some, Jim Caviezel. And they made this movie, and it was distributed by an independent studio called Angel Studios, and went into 4th of July weekend against Indiana Jones 5, which was supposed to be one of the big tent poles of the year, and kicked its butt at about 5,000 less theaters. That happened this year. Now, the aforementioned Tom McDonald went number one on the pop chart over Christmas with a song called Ghost. Ghost. Yep, that's the name of it, Ghost. Until they figured out who he was, Canada had him number one. But then as soon as Canada figured out what his political leanings were, Canada suddenly lost, wouldn't allow him to be number one in Canada. But that's happened within the course of this year. People from complete outside. Now we're talking about Eric July and we're talking about EVS. Both of them are become millionaires off the backs of completely 100% independent comics that they put out. 100% independent comics. Now, whatever the beef is going on right now between them, The bottom line is that was accomplished. They, by themselves, Eric July equaled the entire sales for about 3/4 for Marvel in the last year. I mean, by himself, the sales. Now they don't tell their sales anymore, but from some industry insiders who know a little bit about how many units are getting pushed, Eric July outsold the big two by himself. That's recent. That's this year. So that myth that they're going to be on the mainstream forever. They're going to be on top forever. And because they're on top, that makes them the mainstream. That's a myth. Anyway, let me get caught up over here. All right. They will go the way of late night talk show hosts, aggressively trying to dominate the conversation, bully anyone they perceive as below them until one week they all just disappear, left behind. Right. By the rest of us who moved to listening independent voices on more contemporary platforms. Those mainstreamers will never relate to YouTube audiences that can't abide being questioned. They're too fragile for light trolling or having to defend their positions. Exactly. And interestingly enough, all these talk show hosts, all the top guys, all the ones that are the name brand talk show hosts got together and did a podcast. Have you heard about it? No, you haven't. Why? Because it tanked. All of them together, all the star power that they could muster together onto one podcast, and it tanked. And people that watched it said it was painful. It was literally painful to watch it. Because these guys, whatever they once had, they sold their souls long ago. And comedy comes from being able to call truth to power. And they can't do that because they're part of the power. And so that's happened. So Greg Gutfeld on Fox News, whatever you want to think about Fox News, I personally don't watch them anymore. I think they're, Rhino Central. But Greg Gutfeld, who I think is good. I believe Greg Gutfeld is good and genuine. Greg Gutfeld is basically drawing more numbers than any of those guys together. Combined, he's drawing more numbers. Why? Because he speaks on both sides. Because he goes right down the middle. Because he can be funny. Because he's speaking truth to power. He can be funny. But, I guess he's a mainstream guy, but he's conservative, one lone conservative among all of them, Well, he's not conservative, he's libertarian. But because he makes fun of both sides, he immediately becomes right wing. But there you go. Anyway. See. All right. All they have is a publishing distribution and couldn't even get up the fight and get on the shelves, right? Right? There are many pies that the market will hold. Kings and all that have their pie, but it's not the only pie. No, it's not. Ghost Machine's coming for their ass. Jeff was DC's only saving grace. He bailed on them. Let them keep screwing over their creators. Right. Well, they were after Jeff. They've been after Jeff for decades. So Jeff is finally, I guess he finally listened to EVS because EVS was like, dude, if you did anything independent, if you did anything creator owned, you'd be printing your own money. You'd be printing your own, you basically making your own way. And he finally listened. And so it's going to be interesting to see what he comes up with. Now, but in conclusion, I think what we're seeing right now is we're seeing that perception is not reality. Their perception of the way the world is, their perception of because all the shield media, because all the people that prop them up, all the people that pat them on the back, all the people who push their stuff to an ever dwindling audience, those people are not doing him any favors because they still think they have clout. They still think they can threaten people. They still think they can cancel people. You'll never work in the mainstream again, or you'll never work in the mainstream, period. And somebody sitting over here with 6-figure books is going, okay, sure, no problem. Well, there's a group called Home Free. Okay, like I said, I listen to all music. Home Free is a a cappella country group. Okay, now they won the group this I think it was NBC show called The Sing Off. It might be a NBC or CBS. This is the same show that Pentatonic came out of. Well, they're just as good as Pentatonic, maybe even better. But they saw the writing on the wall. And so when it came to renew that contract that they got through through the that show, they turned it down. And they started their own publishing company. They started their own publishing group, and they started releasing all their stuff, their music videos and stuff like that online. They now are collectively the richest country act in the world right now. And they never get talked about. You never get pushed. No one ever mentions them. But if they drop a song tomorrow, it will have over 1 million views before the end of the week. And that's more eyes than Luke Bryan has gotten in 2 years. But it's because they built up their fan. They got out of the big machine, went straight to the customer, went straight to the fan, and said, here we are. We're accessible. What are you interested in hearing? What tickles your fancy? They did a Star Spangled Banner with Lee Greenwood. Lee Greenwood, who is Trump's favorite, entrance music. God bless the USA. Yeah, he's pretty much persona non grata in Nashville because of his blatant patriotism and his conservative views. But they did a version of God Bless the USA with I think it was the Marines chorus, I think it was. But, and it's the best version I've ever heard. And it, multi-million-dollar seller. Why? Nashville would never even acknowledge that Lee Greenwood exists at this point. But they're like, our people, the people who support us, the people who love our music, all love Lee Greenwood and love God Bless the USA. So whether we agree politic or what, that's the move we're going to make. They also did a version of American Pie with Don McLean. Was it Don McLean? Is his name? But it's really, really awesome to see when people throw down the politics, get outside the machine, and go straight to the customer and say, what do you want? What's going to make your life better? What is entertaining to you? What do you enjoy? What moves you? What makes your day? What are you going to open your wallet for? And here you go. It's so simple. But the mainstream thinks, and this is maybe the biggest myth of all, the mainstream thinks that we can't do without them. They think that they're in the catbird seat, that we have to come to them for our content. We have to come to them for our entertainment. We have to walk through their communist door in their Marxist ideology and their CRT, their DEI, their ESG, their CEI, fill in acronym. But we have to come to them so they control creativity. They control dreams. They control the way that we access our the I don't know what you'd call it, the lore. Okay, the way we access the lore as well, what we share as humanity, has to go through them. That's the biggest myth of all. It does not. It hasn't for some time. We don't need them anymore, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people hate the hate watch, or the people who are commenting on this stuff. The Robin Hood, with a Y, or the Ahsoka television show, or whatever ridiculous, horrible stuff or content that they're putting out presently. And we're like, don't watch this stuff, don't give it credence, don't give it air. But that's the ecosystem at the moment. People enjoy, and I tell you what, watching Az versus Babyface make fun of Robin Hood the other day was the funniest thing I have seen in a decade. I laughed so hard I actually pulled a side muscle. It was so funny. You gotta watch it. You gotta see it. Make sure you check it out. It's episode 3 of Robin Hood. As just absolutely made a jewel. But anyway, so that's pretty much all I got today. I hope that I covered all the bases that everybody was thinking of. If not, leave me a comment. I will bring it up next time I see it. But before we go, let me see here. Immortal Rising, a great T-Bunny rant. I appreciate it, man. What you're describing is what I consider the Iron Age to be. Creators sidestepping mainstream middleman, finding new channels to do business. It's a paradigm shift. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yep. Hellbang Grove, right. Hell indeed. That's a good point. What we're seeing is what's called a renegotiation. Okay. Now, when a child gets to a certain point, especially a male child gets to a certain point, the parents have to figure out how to let them go, have to figure out how to see them as an equal. Because at a certain point, somebody like my stepbrother who stayed in the basement till he was 50 is not a good example of that. But at a certain point, most people in their development are going to outgrow the parental involvement. And there's a negotiation that takes place, and it's usually full of conflict. It's usually full of bad feelings, full of yelling, slamming doors, and it's a rough time for everybody. But eventually there has to be a negotiation that takes place to where the person that's up and coming, the next generation, has to become the grown-up. Now, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the next generation doesn't want to let go. And you got people coming up who are ready to take the reins. And so right now is a negotiation taking place. Now, it can go either way, but my hope is, fingers crossed, I'm hoping it goes the way of creativity. I'm hoping it goes the way of customer service. I hope it goes the way of the people's desire. But that's a big machine we're trying to overthrow right now, and that's a challenge. It's a real challenge. Anyway, that has been all that. It's been Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Thank you all for coming today. I'm hoping that you found something to enjoy. If you have, make sure you like and subscribe. I could appreciate it. And remember, follow the white rabbit. See you next rabbit hole. Have a good day. Bye.